I have a question. You were traumatized. I know the details. Uh, Sexually abused. Um, these days, when we seek justice, there's the idea of revenge, or you know, justice means
Yes.
getting even. Found that you found a place of forgiveness in your heart. Um, how did you do that?
Hmm. Yeah, forgiveness. And, it's so interesting because you're right. Usually vengeance is the first thing that we want. When someone's harmed us deeply or harmed a loved one or harmed Mother Earth, first thing we want is revenge. It was not easy. I've learned over the years the distinction between simple and easy. It was simple. It wasn't easy. And it began actually, I had been in India, I had been in Rishikesh maybe 4 or 5 days. And Pujya Swamiji would give daily darshan, where people would come in to have blessings and ask questions. And I asked him one day, the questions were over, and he looked at me and said yes. And I asked him a question about fear. And he said, "You fear because you don't trust." And I hadn't up until that point told him my story. I was in such a state of ecstasy that the last thing on my mind was how I was suffering. I was in just constant joy and bliss. I just kept saying, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Oh my God, it's so beautiful." So I wasn't at that point moving through the world with that suffering in me. But I knew that I struggled with fear a lot, with stress a lot. So little fear, big fear. I didn't trust the universe. I didn't trust myself. And I asked him, and he said, "You fear because you don't trust." And I told him my story, why I don't trust. Here's what's happened. Here's how I've been abused. Here's how I've been abandoned. Here's my story. And it was a story that up until that point had always gotten me a lot of sympathy. It was a good story. It was something that people had always said, "Oh, ho, ho, you poor thing." And it was a story that enabled me to stay stuck. Whether stuck in addiction, whether stuck in depression, whether stuck in ways of moving through the world. But it was a story that made no one say to me, "How are you going to step up to the plate of your life?" Because the sheer fact that I was managing to excel in school, that I was managing to get this degree, that I was managing to do all of this, that I was managing my life, seemed impressive enough. But Pujya Swamiji looks at me and he says, "Are you going to take that to the grave with you?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "So are you going to give it up on your deathbed?" And I said, "No." I was only 25, remember. And he said, "Well, how about a week before you die? How about a month before you die?" And I'm thinking, is he trying to tell me something? Am I like about to die? And I said, "No. I'm in therapy. I'm undergoing process. Eventually I will heal. No, I don't want to take this to the grave or my deathbed." And he looks at me and he says, "You're waiting for someone to draw the line. No one will do it. No one is going to come in and draw the line and say, 'You can be done. You can be free.' He said, 'It's up to you. You can carry it to your grave, or you can give it up tonight." Tonight? He said, "Yeah, we have this beautiful ceremony called the Arati ceremony, a lighting ceremony on the banks of the river. And after the ceremony, He said, I want you to take part in the ceremony, and then after the ceremony, I want you to go into the river. And I want you to hold water from Ganga in your hands and offer your pain, your anger, into that water and then into Ganga. Now, I was an academic. I was a scientist. And I was getting my PhD in psychology. So, in my mind, the idea that a river was going to be the answer to what ailed me, it was inconceivable. And yet, I said, okay, these words have been spoken by this great being. Okay, I know it's not going to work. And I was sure it wasn't going to work. I was sure there was no way it was going to work. But I thought, it's been spoken by this great being. The least you can do is be sincere about it. You have no idea why you came to India. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area where we had great vegetarian food on my corner, Indian vegetarian food. There was no reason to travel around the world to get Indian vegetarian food. I said, so I don't know why I've come. Maybe it was to hear these words. Who knows? So I took a vow simply that I would do it sincerely. Again, I knew it wasn't going to work, but just that at least I would be sincere and respectful to the instruction given by this great being. And I stood in that water, and I cried, and I pulled up pain, and I cried, and I stood there until I literally could say, I forgive you, and mean it. And until all of the pain that I could find in anywhere in me had been pulled up and offered into this water. I have no idea how long I stood there, but I finally offered it. And what I realized is, and have learned over all of these years, is we don't forgive, and this is key. We don't forgive because what the other person did was right. And so that yearning for vengeance says what you did was wrong. And there is nothing wrong with that. That's what we've got this great law of karma for. That's actually going to make sure that apple seeds become apple trees, and that seeds of abuse and injustice and harm, as you know even better than I do from your wisdom of the teachings and the truths and the scriptures, those seeds blossom into trees that give fruit in people's lives. The universe doesn't need us to be the secretary keeping track of who's done what. God didn't say, hey, do me a favor. Could you keep track of who's been good and who's been bad? We don't need to do that. We forgive not because what they did was okay, but we forgive because we deserve to be free. And to recognize what was done to me was wrong. And I deserve to be free. And that those two are not mutually exclusive. What was done was wrong. And I am a divine being. I am soul, I am spirit, I'm consciousness, I'm love, I'm truth, I'm one with God, and I deserve to be free. And I don't need to hold on to the pain and the anger in order to make sure that the law of karma works. And over the years, I've adapted this way of living and being, which is as soon as something happens, whatever it may be, little, big, to just forgive. And again, it doesn't mean that we don't work to right wrongs. It doesn't mean that we don't work for justice and human rights and feeding people who are hungry and bringing clean water. But it means that we don't lock ourselves up in jail because someone else has done wrong.
Well, several important points come here. One is that a sacred ritual can move you from your conditioned mind to your true self. And your true self doesn't have any resentments or grievances. I think it was Nelson Mandela said something like having a resentment against somebody who's wronged you is drinking poison and hoping it'll kill the enemy. It doesn't do that. But a deeper point here, which you really very eloquently made, is that you don't forgive because you think the other person deserves forgiveness. You forgive because you deserve peace and freedom. And this is one of the beauties of sacred rituals, like Swamiji told you, Pujya Swamiji, do the sacred ritual. Take all that, localize it, and release it, and you will be healed instead of maybe 30 years of psychotherapy. Because I don't think there are any mental solutions created by the mind, because the mind is the problem. The mind creates the problems, and then the spirit is that which heals. So it's very beautiful that you shared that.